order the regular meeting for October of the Hinckley-Big Board of Education. Roll call, please.
Jarrett. Haynes.
Present.
White.
Here.
Vidal.
Here.
Engler.
Present.
Sittig.
Here.
Pritchard.
Here.
Student Representative McMurtry. Here. Quintana.
Here.
Vidal.
Here. Need a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second. Roll call, please.
Haynes.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Vidal.
Yes.
Engler.
Yes.
Sittig.
Yes.
Pritchard.
Yes. Need a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Engler.
Yes.
Sittig.
Yes.
Haynes.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Vidal.
Yes.
Pritchard.
Yes. We'll go ahead and move on to our royal shout out.
Yes, tonight, it is with great pleasure that we take a moment to recognize someone whose creativity and leadership has extended far beyond the walls of our high school. And that is our very own art teacher, Miss Amy Decker. You've seen her work here in town and throughout the building, but over the summer, Amy took a huge leap into the world of public art after learning about the Good Energy Mural competition in Batavia. Her design, also known as the Gateway Mural, was created to greet everyone as they drive into the community, symbolizing the good energy that connects people and nature. So you can see Amy in her mural up there. Out of many talented applicants, Amy was selected as one of 5 finalists by the Batavia Public Art Initiative, and her proposal ultimately rose to the top. Her design went through multiple revisions, blending flowing lines and meaningful imagery to reflect the spirit of the Batavia community. Amy led a team of more than 70 volunteers, including, again, another HBR student, Zoe Bonnier, who helped bring her digital illustration to life on the back wall of the Comedy Vault in downtown Batavia. So if you haven't been, it's right across the street from the little shops, the boardwalk. The Comedy Vault is right there, and you can go and visit Amy's mural anytime right across that road. In just over a week, the blank wall became a vibrant public mural, one that now stands as a lasting symbol of collaboration, creativity, and community pride. When the mural was unveiled just a couple weeks ago, more than 100 people, including several of our own staff, gathered to celebrate this incredible achievement. It was a very hot day, but we did have a great turnout. Amy, your work reminds us of how art can connect people, energize a community, and inspire our students to see their creativity as a force for good. Congratulations on this remarkable accomplishment and on what I'm sure will be the first of many projects that our public gets to see from you. So we're very proud of you. Thank you for coming tonight. Would you like to say anything? No? Okay. I know you're so public. Well, we really wanted to just take a minute and honor and recognize you. That was a huge accomplishment, and we are very proud that our royal staff and the Star community is being represented in that way.
Thank you for all the support that the HBR community has shown.
Yeah, awesome.
Just everyone out there.
Great.
Yeah.
A picture. Someone take a picture of Amy. Picture. I don't know if anybody's had their children participate in one of our art classes, I'm sure through middle school, at least if not at high school, and it really, the things that you guys create are fabulous, so thank you again for all you do.
All right. Go ahead and move on to our citizens' request to address the board. We have none. So we will move on to our presentation. We have a student services update from Bonnie Osborne and Susan Clark.
Come to the podium.
Come to the podium. Okay.
Yay.
All right. So I wanted to give an update on a few different areas: student services, supports, really every student in the district. So we look at all of our tiered supports through our multi-tiered system of supports, MTSS, so Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. Student Services supports students with multilingual learning, and that's something Susan's going to talk about with me. And then it also supports students with IEPs, 504s. It oversees the social emotional learning in the district. So I think 2 of our schools completed their World Mental Health Day, and we just have 1 more. So Student Services kind of touches everything. And I wanted to give an update on where we are in terms of some numbers and what has happened in the past 2 years and what might be coming. Everything in education, we like to use a lot of jargon and acronyms. So I'm going to say things like an IEP, 504, MTSS, Tier 1 and Tier 2, and MLL. And so I just put a little code there, but what I want everyone to know when I talk about an IEP versus a 504 is an IEP is focused on specialized instruction that a student needs based on a disability, and then a 504 is accommodations that a student needs based on a disability. There's more depth to each one, but that's really the difference, is the instruction versus only needing accommodations to access their education. MLL is our multilingual learners, and that's something that we support willingly and that the state says we need to in a really asset-based way of it's a superpower, and we hope everyone can be a multilingual learner at some point. And I shared MTSS, and then Tier 2 and Tier 3 are kind of what we talk about. For a really long time, we've had that triangle in education of supports, and so the bottom base is supposed to be about 80%. That's a gen ed, that's typical learners. So 80% of our students in any given area should fall at that kind of base within our gen ed curriculum, and then we go up from there with needing Tier 2 support, and at the very top of the triangle would be Tier 3. So those interventions come in place for Tier 2 and Tier 3. So I'm just going to tell you what we've been doing. So if you like data, you're in luck, because I do too. And if you don't, this is a great time to take a nap, I guess. But I wanted to share the past 4 years. Now 2026, that's actually this year's data, so there may be some fluctuations there. But you can kind of see where our numbers in each area have been. Basically, spoiler alert, they've been really consistent. There's some tiny fluctuations, but we're a small district and it doesn't make a big change in our percentages. So we have stayed pretty consistent with the number of IEPs, 504 supports. We are growing in our multilingual learners, and we are growing in the amount of students that require Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions. And we'll talk about that.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Is that 122 of in the 2026 for an IEP
Yep.
of like 730? So how does that range in the amount of IEPs percentage-wise to
I'm so
other
glad you
districts
asked
and all
that.
that?
Let's see what's on the next one.
Oh,
Let's dive in a little bit deeper. That's a great question. I love it. So, here we go. That is 17% of our total enrollment. So we've ranged between 16 and 19%. I rounded up or down so you don't see the 0.23 or whatever. But yeah, so we've maintained pretty close percentages in our IEPs, and then our 504s have gone between 5 and 6%, and we see pretty consistent there as well. So even though there's that nice trend line, because I love a graph showing that it's going down, it's because we're so small, it's really staying consistent. Next slide. There's 13 possible categories for disability under the IDEA Act, and so these just add up to 100%, and it kind of shows you where our students are in terms of what their disability category is that qualifies them for service with an IEP. This was last year, because the state won't release like their data for a while, but I can tell you it's really consistent with what we see now and in the past overall.
What would be an example of other health impairment?
Great question. So other health impairment is a lot of times where we see ADHD having a big impact on students. But a lot of our students in that category also may have autism, because the autism category has really specific qualifications around it, where sometimes we know like autism is this huge spectrum, and the way ISB's written the qualifications, it's kind of only hitting if you're over here on the spectrum. So it could be autism, could be ADHD. It can also be a lot of mental health diagnoses. It can also be like seizure disorders, anything like that. And then speech and language is really high. We see that mostly at the elementary. Our goal is always to get them early and then get them out. We don't want to see too many middle schoolers or high schoolers with speech and language impairments. We're really hoping to work on all those articulation and language skills early, and we'll keep working on that.
What do the parenthetical letters signify?
Oh, like the,
Autism and O after it, the K and the L.
it's the state code.
Oh, those are state codes.
Yeah. Nothing too exciting. But this is the percentage of students that we have. Again, I pulled this right from the website, so I'm sorry it's a little blurry. But I put the arrows on so you can see that's us as a district, and then the darker color is the state average. So percent of students with IEPs, right now we are a little bit high with 17%, but the state average was at 16%. So
And that data again is.
that one's 2 years old. That's from the school report card, which is still a little out of date. So they don't have a state average for last year yet, and then we definitely won't get one for this year. But you can see, like, we've been really, really close to the state average. So again, when you're small like this, being within 1%, I think is pretty good. So we're not off in what we're doing, is kind of the takeaway there. So I wanted to hit on something that I noticed last year, and as a new person last year, I thought maybe it was just me, and Dr. Sontag was great in being like, no, this is kind of different for us here at HBR. So last year we had a lot of students move into the district in general. I know I put it in a few of my board updates just about how many move-in students had IEPs, 504, multi-language needs, tiered intervention needs, just lots of kids moved in. We had 9 students last year with IEPs, which when you think about how small we are, that's a lot. 3 of them were private day school students, so that we're going to talk about that in a minute, but that means their needs are so intensive based on their disability that they have to go to a special ed school. And then 1 of them needed to be in a special ed setting for most of their day. And then the top 2 are kind of more typical of what we service here in HBR. So when we think about like the amount of time a student's able to access their general education environment, that means that they're able to be in there, gain learning, and be successful. If they're not in gen ed, that means they're in a special ed environment with a specialist, either the special ed teacher or a related service provider. And those are in really small one-to-one or small groups. So you can kind of know the flip side of that is they're in those special ed settings which require more support. So this year we only had 2 move-ins, you can go to the next one, but last year we had 9 and that was a lot. And that's why we're gonna talk, starting on this slide, about why our private day school numbers did go up so much. This is kind of what we just talked about. So it shows the past 4 years and where the majority of our students are served. And the majority of students in HBR are served in the gen ed setting for more than 80% of our day. We are higher than the state average, which is wonderful. I think we're an extremely inclusive district. I've been so impressed at coming here at how much we do for kids and how flexible we are to make it happen in their schools and their communities. It's wonderful. But again, everything's been pretty consistent for the most part. And then that private day school, you can go to the next one, is what's kind of going up. Same information, but in a different chart, if you like a good chart. So you can see blue is that in the gen ed most of the time, so that's where most of our students are. And we're just gonna really quickly dig into that pink section right there, and that's our private day school students. So these are students who have those specialized needs. That looks like alternate curriculum, high social emotional needs, behavioral supports, high communication needs. So you can see our numbers there, 7, 6, we jumped to 10 last year, and then we're at 12 currently.
Last year we had those 3 move-ins.
So, right, so last year we had 3 move-ins, so we would have hopefully just been at 7. But that's okay, but we want you to know, like, we weren't just like, oh, four students all have to go at the same time. But it was the right thing, and what I always want people to know is, like, these are great schools. Like, Dr. Sontag has been a principal at one. I have, and I've taught in one. Like, there's nothing wrong with needing that level of support. It is an amazing experience for the students who need it. They wrap around families. It can be really positive. So it's not a bad thing for a student to attend one of these schools at all, which sometimes is like the feeling around it. And so I just want to dispel that it's like we're kicking kids out or they just can't be here. They are really built for specific needs. And the ones in blue I want to highlight, so the majority of our students are going to schools for students with autism. So that has been a little different in seeing like the level of need for kids with autism in the district. And so when I noticed that, it made sense to me because we are seeing a really unique learning profile, and those schools at the top are programmed around understanding and programming for kids with autism. Those 3 at the bottom are focused more on the social, emotional, behavioral needs. All of our students are doing really well. We are looking at always bringing students back when they're ready, if they're ready. So that's our goal, is to bring them back in district. But some of the schools, they'll keep the students until they age out at 22 because they have really great programming through age 22.
I want to add in there
Yeah.
too, it has continued to change over the past few years, but initially the IDEA legislation required that schools program for students up until their 21st birthday. When the day they turned 21, wherever it fell in the school year, services were ceased. And then they decided, actually, 22 is that right age. And so now you need to educate students in the public school setting until age 22, wherever their birthday falls. When they hit 22, because the law says through age 21, so maybe we misinterpreted it, let's make it on their 22nd birthday. And then when COVID happened, there was such a gap in services that lobbyists and advocates had really pushed for supporting students that whole school year because they may have missed some part of the year. And so then that has just kind of stuck and become the new expectation and legislated expectation is that if a student turns 22, the school district is required to educate them through the whole school year that they turn 22. So we do have one student in a private facility who on September 3rd or 4th turned 22. And so we will educate her for the whole year. She will benefit from that, and then that is what is expected of us now. But it has continued to shift, and I do think it's because there really aren't a lot of adult services available for young people with this level of disabilities. And so they're just asking the schools to continue to provide some support to help bridge that gap. So just to make sure, because that has been newer legislative than ever.
So we are keeping students even longer, which is okay. Yeah. It's, I think, important for the board to know. I think it's also important to know these schools have a tuition, obviously. So we do pay for students to go here. We have a reimbursement that happens after we hit 2 times the cap. So I think we're at like 34,000, something after that we get reimbursed. So like, it's also a financial decision. We are always gonna put the student needs first. That's what's important. But that is just a fact that we always wanna be upfront about. So ISB does give us that reimbursement once we hit that point.
So what happens with that, and I think from our school board and community perspective, as you're looking at special education costs going up, we are billed for that tuition monthly, and we pay the full tuition regardless of where we are in our 2 times per pupil expenses. Then the state has a formula Megan turns in all of our data for us, and the state has a formula where then they reimburse us quarterly. In the final quarter of FY '26, that revenue we won't receive until fall, first quarter of FY '27, because they look at who are your kids that were receiving these services for the last part of the current school year, and then they reimburse you in the next part of the school year. So yes, there is definitely a reimbursement rate that helps offset the cost of this, but it's really challenging for you to follow that thread if you don't know that, because what you see is a big cost for therapeutic day programming, and then the revenue comes in, but it comes in so sporadically that you maybe don't notice that offset as much. That's a very good point.
Yes, we had 4 go out pretty quickly last year like that. We felt that for sure. But that's how I wanted to kind of get in front and make sure everyone understands that. That's us too. And then obviously too, like students who are going out, they're at a level where they likely had a one-on-one aid or heavy minutes with related service providers and special education teachers, where they are getting a good amount more than any other student would be getting too. So that's just the private day piece. So starting to tiptoe out of special ed, going a little backwards, our tier 2 and tier 3 supports I just wanted to share. So you can see we had about 14% of students in 23, up to 19% receiving these interventions in 24. Last year, we had 23% of all of our students receiving this level of support. And this year, we shouldn't count that number yet because we tend to add more in these next month or two, as we're just still early in the year. So I would anticipate it mirroring last year. Last year, we worked really hard across those 3 domains that you can see, reading, math, and social emotional intervention. We came up with a framework together that allowed for some systems in each to keep track of things, to ensure students were getting exactly what they need, progress monitoring, all the good pieces. But what we're finding is more and more students need help, and it's becoming bigger than it ever has been in the past. So remember, we're supposed to kind of have 80% in that tier 1 area, and now we're at 17% with special ed, 13 if we take out the speech kiddos, and now we have 17% this year, 23% last year, needing a tier 2. So we have kind of this situation that we're noticing where more and more kids just need more help than ever before. So we're gonna keep talking about that, what we can do. That's nice. There we go, summary. So our kids are needing more support than ever, whether they're general education students with those tiered interventions, whether they're special education students. We are seeing so many of our students need support, and we are, I believe, do a great job at providing that support, but it is something that is needed. So the areas that we see are in, number 1 is emotional regulation, whether at the elementary, that looks like crying, yelling, behavioral kind of meltdowns. We have all the way to EC, so we've got 3-year-olds. We see students like jumping on tables. We see students tipping over chairs, eloping through the hall, hitting, kicking, screaming, spitting. And we work through that. That's kind of like a social worker, psychologist, special education teacher, like we are trained for those things. But they are happening way more frequently than in past years. And that's not unique to HBR, like that is the world we're living in. And it goes all the way up through high school where we see like more and more mental health needs, and the amount of kids that Mr. Abs and Ms. Neidig see who aren't related to general school counseling or a 504 or an IEP continue to go up as well. So we're seeing that. We're also seeing at the elementary less and less like adaptive or functional skills. So more support with self-help, like toilet training. We're having a lot more students with like toilet training plans and needing support with the bathroom. Lots more students who really struggle just to follow the group plan, or who might elope and, you know, not in crisis, but just kind of go their own way or run off the playground or that kind of thing. So we're really working on some of those things that we didn't see as often. So even though our numbers look consistent, the needs are rising. And then just a summary of our staffing. For our special education teachers, this year, so last year, you can see 2023's allocation, then you can see last year, like everywhere in the country right now, special ed teachers in general are hard to find. So we weren't able to find a teacher for the middle school or the high school, but we worked around that. We got support. We used a retired person who did like a half sub teacher, half para at the middle school. At the high school, our case manager was able to take on most of it with the counselor and the social worker helping. So we made that work. And then this year, we have one EC teacher instead of 2. And then we have 2 elementary special ed teachers instead of 3. So what we did with that is for the elementary special ed teachers, we posted for an inclusion facilitator. We took a very talented para and put her in that role. And she's been amazing. She's focusing on some of our students who would have been considered for what we call the instructional skills program. So those kids who aren't in gen ed for very much of their day, who are really working on what does it mean to be a student and to be at school, and how do I regulate my emotions during the day. And so she's been super helpful with that. And then we pulled for one of our EC paras. We kind of empowered her and shifted her into a teacher assistant role to take on more instructional support. Ms. Blair has 19 students in her PM class, but we still have enough adults that the ratio is 1 to 3. So kids are still definitely getting what they need. But again, I just think it's important for you to know that and see that. The paras, we do have a lot supporting students as one-on-ones in the like kinder and first grade grade bands. We're trying to move back from that as the students get more independent and make safer choices throughout the day. So you can kind of see like the numbers dwindle at each building, which you would expect as students grow and become more independent. But as they grow out of that, someone else will grow right into it, I guess. So I don't see it going anywhere. And then some changes in related service. So we have had kiddos with some pretty unique needs, which are going to impact our costs. So we had students who need vision and hearing services. So we had some last year, we have more this year. We have students who are still learning to walk in our EC program. So we have a lot more PT and OT needs as well than we have before, which again is okay. They're gonna learn those things. And that's why we have those programs, but it's important for everyone to know, like, we are just seeing these unique needs.
Why does that fall on the, I don't want this to sound crass, but
Yeah.
why does it fall on the school?
Great question. So when they come out of early intervention, right, so they have kind of that program, the school is responsible for picking up school-based needs. So when we do the evaluation, we have to determine what is a home or clinic-based versus a school-based. So we don't, I don't want to say we don't like give every student coming out of EI an IEP if they don't need it in a school setting. But these kiddos, they need both.
Okay.
I think it's not that they haven't learned to walk, but they have physical needs that still need to be developed to enable them to walk, right?
Yes, beautifully said. They will get there, both of them will. But I will say one of my things on the next slide, which we can wait, but is one of the things moving forward that I want our department to continue working on is family and community engagement. Because what I have noticed is that, and I think it's because of our location, is that our families don't access services outside of school at the same rate that I have previously been used to families accessing services. So I think if you can get it, like especially when kiddos are young. So whether that's OT or PT or speech, our focus is on school, not their whole life. And I mean that in the best way. So we've been working on kind of creating resource guides and trying to partner with families on what's available nearby, what they could try, and then we can collaborate and work on goals. But that is a definite need, especially when I think about our speech and language pieces, that's our highest area of eligibility, and we are over the state average. And I think it's come from that genuine place of wanting, these are our kids and we want to support them. So that is an area moving forward that we're going to continue building. It's just helping families access what's around and understand school-based is different than home.
Is it a lack of knowing the resources that are available, or are you seeing something else that's causing that?
I think it's mostly that they don't know that they could do these things, and I think it's also a positive assumption that the school can just do it. So not like a entitlement or anything like that, but I think there's just like the families are really respectful and like, yeah, you guys can do it. Like, you guys are amazing. You can do it, and it's like we can do it here in this tiny moment. But we need to work.
You think a lot of the practitioners are full and they have wait lists. And so the time that they're available might not jive with when our families are available to go and take. I've seen in our community already this year, parents helping parents, like, I'll drive your student to Yorkville every day for ABA therapy, you know, like, that's huge if I'm a working full-time parent. Getting your child to therapy at the times that they're open or have the availability is challenging as well. We bring therapists in the school when we can.
We did reallocate social work since the needs at the high school were a little less, so that was one way that we are addressing the elementary need, is that Mrs. Neidig at the high school supports the high school, but she also helps support 3rd and 4th grade, and then Mrs. Wassman focuses on ECK 1 and 2, because we do see a lot of dysregulation in the littles as they're learning to build those skills. And then our speech, as you know, we went from 2 full-time. We weren't able, again, during this fun staffing time, we weren't able to fill, so we were able to contract someone, which I think is really helping us in this interim time of kind of looking at some systems within, and she ends up being a 0.6 because she can do 3 days a week. So she's helping us build some systems for eligibility, for dismissal, for service models. And I think it's been a really positive thing so far. So then just the other things moving forward we're going to do is continue monitoring those numbers and doing what we need to for kids, whether that means, you know, it might be me coming and talking about, oof, numbers are up or needs are up and we need to look at an additional teacher or this or that. We're going to continue building strong connections for hiring pathways. So I've been trying to partner more with our local universities to get in clinical students, to get in more student teachers. And then I also work with Golden Apple to try to get some of their future teachers and new teachers, because we just got to find people to hire. Continued partnership with our outplacements to bring students back when they're ready. So we do, I case manage all of them personally, and I go out and see the students and kind of know about all their progress. Strengthen family and community partnerships, like I shared, that's probably my biggest goal area. And then continued professional learning surrounding student needs, especially our gen ed teachers, and so figuring out how to do that, I think will be really important in the upcoming years. Our students are in the gen ed classroom as much as possible. You saw those fun charts, but gen ed teachers don't get the same level of training as special ed teachers, so we want to find ways to bring that to them. We want to optimize our funding streams as much as possible with grants, with Medicaid billing. My related service providers get tired of hearing me. Make sure that they're up to date because we get some reimbursement from those things. So I'll be monitoring that and making sure we get all the money we can, especially I know in this fun time of federal decision making. And then the last one is just consideration of collaborative opportunities with our local small districts around here. We're not the only one in this situation, and so Dr. Sontag, myself, we continue to try to partner and see what Somnock's doing, what Indian Creek's doing, what small places are doing, and what in the future we could do together.
Does that seem hopeful or fruitful, or, I mean, are you getting like reciprocation in the interest of collaborating?
Yeah, definitely. In the small conversations we've had, everybody, I think, kind of feels the same. Like, we're so small, so we have to, it's either us or an outplacement for students. funding's tight. We love our kids, we want them here. So yeah, and the local, I don't know, all the local district people that I've talked to are great, so they definitely want to partner together, and Dr. Sontag's been working with them for a long time, so I know they trust her and would love to see what we can do.
So you said number 4, strengthen family and community partnerships is kind of one of your more important goals?
Yes.
Is that what you said? So, is there anything we could be doing to put our shoulder to that wheel?
That's so nice, thank you. I will let you know. I want to work with our team and even create some events for families or kind of get the word out there for families, but I want to see what local, like if any of you know of local resources that provide students with services in any area, academics, social emotional, anything. I think kind of having our resource guide of here's what's available is step one, and then having an event where families can meet those people will be really great. So once we kind of figure out those next steps, I definitely would love your support in promoting that.
Okay, so Susan was gonna talk a little bit about the MOL piece.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Bonnie.
Wow. Time to get festive.
Yes. It's good to see you. I am here tonight to really piggyback off what Bonnie was talking about, and I'm going to really talk about numbers and statistics and the nuts and bolts of my program. Having said that, I would love to come back in a few months and bring some students and parents and talk about how we have grown in not just numbers and statistics, but in a culture at this school. So, open to another invitation. Our multilingual program is in its 5th year, and I want to talk to you about what that means. In the last 5 years, the halls of HBR have heard English, Spanish, Arabic, Gujarati, Mandarin, Ukrainian, Tagalog, Bisaya, that was one student, and Korean. All of those languages right here in Hinckley-Big Rock. So that is pretty amazing. How do we identify a multilingual learner? I'm going to talk you through that process because they just don't show up at the door and say, hey, I've got language. And I'm like, hey, you're on my caseload. We have to go through a process. And that process is the home language survey. Every parent fills it out at registration. Does your child have another language? And is there someone in your home who is the native speaker of another language? That's important. You can raise a child speaking English, but if you have another native language, that child is going to need extra monitoring with syntax, with how sentences and grammar are used, and vocabulary. So a parent who is a native speaker also qualifies that child to be a multilingual speaker. Sharon gives me that list every time it comes through and that box is checked, and I do the WIDA screening. WIDA is the name of the company that does the screening for a lot of states right here in the Midwest. After that screening, Jennifer Porter and I sit down and put that data into the state system. And that state system lets us know who they think, based on that score, needs annual assessment and who we just need to monitor. So, in ISB, they're classified as active or not active. Show me a child who's not active, but whatever, it's the state, it's not me. And each year, that child takes the access test. It is a really heavy-duty test over 4 different days in listening, reading, speaking, and writing. And that student needs to achieve a score of 4.8 out of 6. That says to us this child is well on their way to being academically proficient in English. Academic proficiency is a huge high standard compared to just conversational. proficiency. That means they can read and write, argue, debate, support, do all of that at a high academic level. It is a tough test. So where does that put us? Currently, today, at HBR, we have 50 students who will be taking the access test in February. That's an important number. I already got the email this morning that I need to order my testing materials. We will have 50 students doing that 4-day, very intensive test. We have 21 students who have tested proficient on the access test. And we have 6 early childhood students. I have early childhood in its own world. We do need to screen them, but not using the WIDA screener. And then next year when they go into kindergarten, we need to screen them all again using the WIDA screener. So I kind of keep that early childhood number a little bit separate, not because they're not multilingual learners, it's just in a different category. What does that mean? It means we have 77 students at HBR who have another language. Whether they take the access test each year or not, whether they are in early childhood or high school, those 77 students have more than one language, and that affects brain development in amazing and great ways. It is a strength, but it is a strength that needs to be nurtured, supported, and developed. I tell my students, I have a chart in my middle school room, your brain is building a bridge. On one side of the brain, maybe Spanish, and on this side, maybe English. Your brain is working to bring it all together, and that's your superpower. And I tell my students, Iron Man did not get that suit right the first time, or the second time, or the third time. We are going to work on this because once you have it, you have a superpower. In 2023, we had 61 students. Remember, we started in 2021 with 19. We got better at identification. It's also growing because we are right down the road from Aurora. We're going to continue to grow. And we had 62 students, 71 students, and this year we are at 77 students. The breakdown for schools, we have 16 in early childhood and kindergarten. I keep those, like I said, I think that's just a special, unique world. I have 20 first through fourth graders, 24 middle schoolers, and 17 high schoolers. I want to talk to you about how an English-speaking student learns using an ultra-simple graph. Bonnie had these great graphs that were very realistic. Let's just pretend for a moment that every English-speaking child learns on that upward trajectory. Each year they go through school, each grade, that is what is expected. A multilingual learner has a different trajectory. Research, experience, is really gaining ground each year, the wealth of research that we have. Multilingual learners, because it takes 5 to 7 years to learn another language, sort of bump along below grade level. Not a lot, but a little. And a couple things we want to be really careful about. Number one, it's not a special ed problem. We don't need to get an IEP right away because a multilingual student is below grade level. Number two, we do not want that student to be bumping along and have their self-esteem and their motivation and their stamina beaten down by the time they are learned another language. They're already working harder than every other student. So I'm very, very careful about offering that support. And then we need to educate the teachers that it's okay. I expect this, I'm monitoring it, we got this together. But look what happens when those skills, when that superpower is brought together and it's all working, multilingual students outperform monolingual students and they stay there. It is a fact because your brain is so much more active with the second language. And that's why we want all of our students to be taking other languages, to be taking our Spanish classes. It's not just a great skill, it improves the health of your brain. I look for the child that's the green X right there. I look for that child that is below where even I think they should be performing. That while they were learning English, maybe they missed that basic phonics instruction that doesn't really take place after second grade. I'm looking for that newcomer who's just learning the English language. And that's where I really plan my day around. So of the 16 early childhood and kinders, I have 5 who are learning English as we speak this year. Not all of them have immigrated here. Some of them just have been in homes where the native language is the one that's used. And that's best practice for a child to hear that native language during those early years. That's rich language. I have 6 students in 1st through 4th grade. Look at the middle school. I have 14 students. We had 2 students arrive the day before school started who are learning English right now. And I have 3 who, due to circumstances, did not have good reading instruction during those early years, and they are well below grade level. So that is a huge area for my resources. The high school, I have 9 students I want to check in with and make sure that we have some contact. So what's the great things that is going on in our multilingual program? I'm in all 3 schools every day. I love it. I love moving around. I love walking into the building and feeling the energy of that building. I also think it's a positive because it brings cohesiveness to the program. I talked to a man today, a father, who I was talking about his elementary school son, but he said, my stepchildren will be immigrating here. I hope they're here by Christmas. They do not speak any English and they'll be at the high school. Can you give me the name of that person who's going to help me? Yeah, you're talking to her. It's really nice to have the families have that one person working with an entire family. We have bilingual personnel that we did not have 5 years ago. We have a Spanish-speaking principal at the elementary. We have a Spanish-speaking social worker at the middle school. And I have a bilingual paraprofessional full-time at the elementary who's amazing. We hit the jackpot with her. And we have a new Spanish teacher that I haven't met yet, but I'm really looking forward to developing that relationship. I have absconded with a para at, don't tell anybody. No, I have a para at the middle school who works 2 periods a day with the multilingual students on basic phonics skills, getting them up to grade level. We have tiny kettle translators due to the Meta grant we got last year for $10,000. Our newcomers can wear earbuds and the teachers speak into a device and the lesson is translated. It's not perfect because it's not a human being, but it's darn close. And it's been a game changer this year with letting my newcomers just go. Throughout the district, my paras and I run 10 intensive reading groups each day to bring students up closer to grade level with their basic phonics and English skills. SLANT is the curriculum I use. And I think we've done a really great job with professional development on institute days and teachers meetings and PLCs. Our teachers are talking the same language. Our teachers have common vocabulary and an understanding of what a multilingual learner is. A multilingual learner is not necessarily an immigrant, and a multilingual learner is not the next person we sign up for a special ed domain. Some areas that I'm feeling stretched on or are challenging is I love being in 3 schools a day. I'm in 3 schools every day. If a student if a student emails me, students are not texting me. If a student emails me and says, hey, I really need help, could you sit in on the Chem Phys class and let's go through some vocabulary strategies, but I'm running a group at the elementary, it's really hard to make those decisions. I will be very honest, the high school I feel is an area that I see a lot of potential, but right now that's not where my highest needs are, so I'm really at a check and connect. I try to be in here at lunch and make sure I'm touching bases with students, and then for 2 periods a day, I'm there for office. I'd love to do more push-in support in the classroom, showing teachers how easy it is to accommodate. I'd like specific vocabulary instruction for Tier 2 vocabulary for my multilingual learners. Those are words they hear at home, that English learners would hear at home, like simultaneously, contrast, compare, things that come up on test that we assume students know. And students are taking tests with vocabulary they don't know. I used to do, when we had fewer multilingual students, class chats. It was a really fun part of my day where we would get in a circle and we would talk about, if you hear someone speaking Spanish, what can you assume? And what can you not assume? 70% of the people we hear speak another language are United States citizens born right here down the road from you. And that's not something students think about. I always use the example of one day somebody will walk through our doors wearing a hijab. How are we going to react? What is appropriate and what is not appropriate? I love those kind of chats, and those have really gotten squeezed out of my day. So we have grown a wonderful multilingual program. I gotta tell you, our team, and this is all of us together, have put together a multilingual program I would hold up against any small town rural district. I think it is amazing due to the teachers, the students, the staff, the admin, everybody. But we're in the middle of farm country, and we know you can start growing something, but you've got to plan for the future. You can't just trust that it's going to keep taking off. Students are walking through our front door. Every single student deserves access to our education that HBR has to offer. But if a student walks through that door and doesn't have our language, doesn't have the English language, we need to plan for that. That can't be accidental. For example, that phone call just a few hours ago, I'm starting to think, what's going to happen when those students walk through the front door at the high school without English? And right now, that's not the part of my program that I feel is the very strongest. So as Dr. Sontag and Bonnie speak to you about where this program's going in the future and what we need, I'm available, answer any questions. I will invite all of you to our next community night, our family nights. That would be really awesome, and I'd love to come back with some of our students and families and have them talk about their experience at HBR. Questions?
I have just one and maybe a follow-up. So of the students that we have, how many would you consider not conversational?
Well, conversation is the easiest to get through, yeah. I have that right here. I have 6 students who I feel are not conversational, and I have 13 students who we provide translators for the parents, and we translate all written materials for the parents.
Okay, so of the 6, are there any that, I guess what I'm driving at are there any that, of that 6 that don't have someone else they can speak with is kind of where I'm?
Yes.
Okay.
Gujarati
Okay.
is the number 1, and some of my grade levels are more heavy, like the middle school right now, students have a buddy they can talk with. But first, second, and to a certain extent, third, if you're a newcomer in those grades, and I do have one, it's a lonely world. Any other questions?
Just from what you just said, is most of the need in the lower grades as far as the students with the least conversational?
No.
Okay.
Well, in early childhood and kindergarten, those are play-based programs that work, they're trained to teach language and to do the phonics and the language-rich environment. I rarely pull children from those classes because it's such an excellent place to learn language. I wouldn't do that. But right now at the middle school, they're sitting in classes that are difficult to understand. They're learning the language, and I have students who are so far below grade level based on the English instruction they received at other places, that they're being in the classroom is very, very challenging. So that's where I am putting my needs right now, because we need to access the education.
Yeah.
Did that answer your
Yeah,
question?
it did.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay.
I just want to make sure I understood.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. It's always enjoyable to hear the passion you guys have, and it is 10% of our district, so it's something that's not often talked about, so it's great to bring recognition to that.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to our committee updates. We'll start with buildings and grounds. We did not have a meeting. We do have one scheduled for October 29th, but I did want to provide an update on the easement request that we've been talking about ongoing. As you remember, probably in the last year, we've been talking about the two residences that are landlocked, for lack of better terms, to our 540 Lincoln Highway property. So we've been talking about that and figuring out what we can do to help them, and doing our due diligence and talking to our legal advisor. I'll read actually here so I get it right. Who advised us that the school code allows for school boards having legal title to school sites to grant temporary and permanent easements for sewer, water, drainage, or utility purposes. The school code does not contemplate an easement on school property for any other purposes. So basically, in their advice, that means that we cannot grant permanent easements for anything other than those utility purposes that were discussed. So I just thought that was something that we'll have to factor into our discussions, just to bring awareness to it since we've been talking about it. So I think that's all I have for that. Is there an IBCC update?
Yeah, I can give it. So we did meet on Wednesday, October 8th, and just a reminder, this committee served as the school calendar committee, so that was our main focus last Wednesday, was actively working on the future school calendar with the goal of creating a survey for the faculty and the family members. So we dialed down to some questions, so we'll be sending out a survey, so if you're faculty or family member, look for that. Do we know when that?
It should be coming out sometime in the next week. We were in it right before conferences.
So that'll be coming out in the next week, so we appreciate a response on that, and our goal will be to review those surveys and bring a calendar hopefully to the November board meeting for review.
Is the plan, as has been the case, to do a 2-year calendar?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Is there an IBCC update?
No.
All right, we'll move on to our student representative update.
So this is our October presentation. Alex and Bert today. Our first topic is 2 weeks ago was homecoming. enjoying food from all the different clubs, classes that we had to offer. Thank you all the supporters and students in the work to make this happen.
To wrap up tonight, we have the soccer game. So we had a 4-1 victory against Marengo. I know the boys, especially me as well, first year as a soccer player, enjoyed having the big crowd that night, and also having the big crowd at the Little Time tournament last week. And then we also had our first SAC meeting of the year. That was October 2nd. We just discussed like the purpose of the group and why we have it. And then we also discussed how vaping numbers went down a third from last year, which is great. We were at like 350 like beginning of the year last year. We're down to like 100 and yeah.
Incidences, right? It's
Alerts, yeah.
Alerts, yeah.
So it's
Oh, people think 300 and some odd kids are vaping. We're down a third.
So next thing is on October 3rd, the seniors went to feed my starving children, the packed food for kids in other countries who aren't able to produce or unable to have food. Well, the seniors were there, the rest of the high schoolers were taking the first benchmark test of the year. Oh, there's a slide before that. It should be. Wow, it was, there's been on
there.
Oh, there it is. So there's just some photos from my garden program. Oh, it's my minutes.
You guys packed 96 meals. Right?
Yeah, remember how many bags that came out to? Or maybe I still don't know.
No, it was enough, it was over 300 things for. I took pictures. It's a lot.
The next thing you have to report on is TPing. So the seniors got to school Thursday night, really well, I think TP all weekend week. And then, was it Wednesday night, me and Matthew had some fun, keeping down from the White House. So we, gave you guys some lovely photos to look at there. And then Dr. Thorndike also joined the girls golf team the last Tuesday for our final scramble practice.
For a sports update, the golf season ended 2 weeks ago. It's kind of hard to believe that it's 2 weeks ago. But so the entire team ended in regionals. With JJ Hartman on the boys team, he advanced and made sectionals, which is no small feat. He shot a 84 to make it into sectionals, but he had to play a playoff with I think it was 7 other guys. So only one person couldn't make it to sectionals. So but yeah, and then soccer. Like I said, we won the Little Ten Conference tournament. The victory against Samana, 2-1 victory. And then also the middle school soccer team won their tournament as well. That was the night before our game, and it was against Samana. So, and the high school team starts regionals next week, Tuesday, at 7 o'clock against Westminster Harvest Christian.
Rose Bible team plays fourth in Little Ten tournament. They have another week of regular season games after they start the regional play. The middle school girls place third in the Little Ten as well.
For cross country, both girls and boys cross country teams have competed well. They've also just been improving on their times at both practices and meets. They both have regionals next Saturday. And then one thing that we did want to discuss this board meeting and probably the upcoming board meetings as well is the new student board application process. So we kind of have it outlined there. But we're hoping to get the application sent out here pretty soon in the next month. And they're going to make like the due date before the winter break. And then we'll be kind of selecting and interviewing people throughout the late January and early February months. And then they'll attend their first meeting for March. So it's kind of fluid right now, but that's kind of what my plan is right now.
Alex had talked about, unfortunately he had to leave, but he had talked about his vision being where maybe in March, the new, elected official, student reps would sit in the audience and our current reps would sit around the table, and then that they would switch in April or May, so that they started to have, or maybe one of them stays with the new people to help them feel comfortable, but really kind of doing a good transition and handoff. So they have a lot of good ideas about what that can look like.
Do your applicants come from the entire, from student body, or do they come from that, is it the superintendent advisory committee? I know you guys are the inaugural group,
So yeah, we have a survey written up, and we're thinking, for time-wise, we like the 2-year on the board, so we're thinking it sent out to the current sophomores, so that they would go into it, being on the board for junior and senior year. So I think that's the idea right now, is just to send it out to all sophomores. And then
We do have, our sophomore group on the advisory council is 3 or 4 students, isn't it? Yeah, I think we have 4 that are sophomores, but, certainly, they might have some different experience and have been part of some of the problem solving, but we had talked about opening it up to all sophomores this week. Maybe somebody missed the opportunity or didn't, want to meet during lunch or, other times, so. Remember, they, had to have 2 references, so either a faculty member, a coach, employer, somebody that could speak to their responsibility. And then you guys went through a pretty intense interview process with a couple of these guys. And so I think that was part of what they want to discuss at an upcoming meeting too, is what role do our current board members want to have in the selection process and how do we move forward.
Are numbers 3? Is that the kind of the thought?
We like the number 3, especially with me and Alex are involved in, last year we were involved in 3 sports, so it's kind of whatever the schedule had, I think I missed, 2 board meetings, you missed the E3, the track.
It's not holding the record, you're wrong.
But, I mean, yeah, so kind of us today now on their own.
But I think that is a great example of how
Yeah.
it's having to leave, and there's still 2 of us down each other out.
I did talk about going back to the original idea of 2, and they have really advocated for keeping it at 3. And so I think that's great. The more students who can get involved with that.
Well, thank you very much for that update. We'll go ahead and move on to our administrative update.
Okay, I think I'm following the agenda here with the order. The first thing I wanted to talk about tonight was our preliminary tax levy. So this is something that happens every fall, if you'll recall and remember. The tax levy that is our request or our ask of money from our taxpayers to help support the school, help us allow for the school business to run. So there is an executive memo in there that talks through what the levy is. We are a tax cap district, so that's important to remember. We will only get what we received last year plus CPI. That's all we can get, and CPI was 2.9%. However, we have to ask for more than what we're going to receive, or we might not get all that is owed to us through the industry. So we do have a TIF that expired in 2024. So we need to do again this year what's called a balloon levy, where you ask for a larger amount of money than what you know that you're going to get to account for whatever that TIF ends up being worth to us in our district. So I called King County, and we got what the TIF itself is, and we're about a third of it. So I planned for that third but then it just depends on what all of the EAB and the other new property ends up being, and we won't know that until July. And so what happens is we make our ask through this levy process, and then the assessor's office and the county clerk figure out what was the actual EAB, or equalized assessed value, of new property, what was the TIF proportionate to us actually worth, and then that's when they will decide what our extension is, and our extension is what we actually receive. So taxpayers don't need to worry about a significant hike when they see this number, because that's not what we're asking of you all, right? What we can get from the taxes specifically are whatever we received last year plus CPI. And again, that CPI came in at 2.9. I do recommend that we're asking though for 5.6% increase over last year, because again, we need to ask for more to ensure that whatever our new property is and the TIF that expired, that we get it. If we don't ask for enough, if the number comes out higher than what we asked for, we can never go back and ask for that again. And everything that we get from new property, and there's been a lot of new property going up in our boundaries, and from the TIF, gets added on to our base each year. So it's not that we would just miss it one year, we would miss the benefits and proceeds of that ongoing. So my recommendation after going through the ISLOC workshop and working with PMA and Stokes Consulting is that we ask for 5.6. Any questions?
Yes, so we've been talking about that TIF district expiring for a couple of years, and you've done a great job, kind of keeping ahead of it. Is there any other TIF districts that are set up that we need to be watching for the future?
Not right now. So that was the one, Sugar Grove does have a second TIF, but we are not, it's not part of us, like where it lies, it wouldn't fall within our district. So the only other thing that would be on the horizon that we need to be thinking about in a couple of years is that solar farm that is potentially going in. If that all happens, then we would need to balloon levy to make sure that we capture the EAB that it is going to generate. And that would be 2029. So the thing with the levy too is it's levy year 26 and it's tax year 25, but we're gonna be funding part of fiscal year 27 too. So it captures and crosses multiple years. So that TIF expired in December 2024, but it's only now gonna come on the books for our fiscal year 27. I'm really grateful that they have these workshops every year for us to go in. Is one of the more important financial things that we do as a district, so. But I think the thing I wanna just keep reiterating is we're gonna ask for more than we know that we are gonna receive, and that's okay, that's what we want to do. And at the end of the day, when July comes around and the county offices have pooled all of their data together, they are only going to give us what we can have, So I think that everybody should feel confident and comfortable with that. Because we are asking for, we did not last year, the number was 5%. Anything over 5% requires a truth and taxation hearing, and since we are requesting 5.6, next month we would have a truth and taxation hearing prior to our board meeting, which would just allow anyone to come in or send in comments or questions that they would like to have posed before the board would take action on the levy. Now, the levy is due to the counties by the last Tuesday in December. We have been the past few years going ahead and making our action on the levy in November, just in case there is something would happen and we would not be able to meet in December. Okay? All right. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about was just our first quarter financial review. This one's always really easy because, we just received some taxes and we spent the first part of the school year buying supplies and getting some of our salaries and benefits paid out. So you can see I have a sheet on revenue and expenditures. Depends on how you want to look at it. This really just frames what was in the report from Zach as well, but We have received about a third of our revenue. Again, we just got payment from the counties for taxes, so that's where that came in. And we've spent about 20% of the budgeted expenditures. So we're really in a good spot. We're right on track with what we had budgeted for. And so far, it's just looking like we'll stay that way. But I'll let you know in January. Any questions about these? Again, it's pretty easy in this first quarter. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was just our first quarter goal update. And Mike Osborne actually captured quite a bit of what I would share there. So the most important things to know right now are that, and related to that goal, we know we have a tier 1 systems, I won't call it issue or problem, but that's where our focus is right now, and that's our base curriculum. And so things we were gonna do to help support that we're having all of our teachers do curriculum mapping. So today, first quarter curriculum maps were turned into building principles, so we're reviewing those and making sure that we're capturing everything that we have been teaching, so that later in the year we can start to align it from vertical articulation. The second thing that has happened, our students started to talk about the benchmarking exams that took place at high school. So by now, every student in kindergarten through 11th grade has participated in the first benchmarking assessment. Kindergarten through 8th grade is that MAP test that you're all familiar with. And then at high school this year, we launched Progress Learning. And Progress Learning mirrors the ACT and the pre-ACT exams. And I will say that I heard some teachers and some students talking about it and how grateful they were for that opportunity. They did not like having to take the assessment necessarily, but they were shocked about what it A, felt like to take a time test, B, trying to read through the various questions and see what they understood and didn't understand. One of our teachers right away said it's very clear we need to refocus on academic vocabulary. We've stepped away from that for a few years and we need to bring it back in. Also, our data is looking better in math this year than it has in the past year. So we're really starting to glean some great baseline data for how to support our students. At the high school level, what Progress Learning will do is take the students' responses in various subcategories and generate individual study skill plans for them so that teachers know where to hone in and target instructionally with those students, but also those students know exactly where they can start practicing to improve their skills as well. We looked at our data. It was hard, I think, at the high school level last week to dig in and really look at last year's ACT data, the pre-ACT data, and the advanced placement exam data. It's kind of like Bonnie was saying, it feels like we weren't doing that. We have an increase in special education identification, but really our numbers have stayed the same. So that data really comes in to replace the what does it feel like, right? So our data indicated we as a district have not been meeting the benchmarks in very many of our instructional areas as set by the state. So we are going to continue to work on all of those areas. And sorry to the senior class, this year, but the students behind you are looking more proficient in some of those benchmarks. And so that's good news, because that means that we have started to fill in some of those instructional gaps and see where the needs are. But also, in a district this size, we have to also just be cognizant that our student body matters, so each year we have different strengths and weaknesses in the group of students who make up the class. And so when we look at that as a whole, one or two students with lower performance data does skew the whole big picture. And so I think that's important to understand. But what I like about both math and Progress Learning is it drills down for the individual students to see where are their areas of growth that have been identified, and then so we know how to program for them. the curriculum mapping in conjunction with the assessment is going to show us where our instructional gaps might be and what we need to do to fill that in to ensure that our students are being delivered the best instruction that they can receive.
So your staff and the administration hear that we're not as proficient as we need to be. What's their take on things? What do you hear, you know, why this may be the case?
I think, while it was, you know, students were very distracted by their devices, so we removed those from the classroom. Students are not the same that they have always been. Students have, less motivation, less interest, I think we hear sometimes. We have had teachers say that they have to relearn how to teach, because students, they were so used to having students have devices in the classroom that they now are filling a 47-minute period or 42-minute period with 5 minutes for like getting started on work, but in the past, maybe they didn't fill that whole period. So it's just, I think it's been eye-opening, and whereas when you're intentional about things, they happen, and when you become less intentional, sometimes they don't happen as much. So we talked about writing across the curriculum about 10 years ago. That was a huge goal here, was writing across the curriculum. Every class was focusing on writing. But I do think they were taken aback and surprised when they saw the data, right? Because it doesn't feel like that overall. I will say, because the state has recently changed our benchmarking data to align with what they think is more, I don't say fair, but more reasonable with the expectations of our surrounding states or other states in the United States. The benchmarking data has dropped for this upcoming year, what we will be measured on as far as our proficiency, and we are looking like we will be within the targets if our students continue to perform even as they are first quarter.
Does any of the testing in that, a better term, no pun intended, map out where the areas of weakness are at, that we can say, okay, this is, and are there patterns that we're seeing with our students that are saying, okay, we need to double down in this area?
Those are definitely the conversations that we encourage the teachers to start having on Friday when looking at that data. And again, one of our teachers was, they just said it was very clear watching the kids take the assessment and looking at the scores coming in that we need to focus on academic vocabulary. And we need to focus on test taking, even just understanding how to read for meaning, that reading comprehension piece. Science is an area that on the ACT they promote. Science is supposed to help raise test scores because it's really about reading and analyzing graphs and being able to answer some questions. But science was an area that our students did not score well on, and I'm not targeting our science teachers, but that's a thing, right? Like, oh, we actually need to spend some time then maybe honing in on that skill. So I do think that we're going to be able to glean some good information from there.
Yeah, and I think we need to be careful because it wasn't too long ago that the accusations in education where we were just teaching to the test.
Correct.
Right? And we don't want to just go back to that. There's value in what's happening, what's being done. We just want to make sure we're teaching the needed things, so.
Yeah, what we decided we want to look for, what are those gaps, right? What are the big areas that we're being measured on for our own student progress? But also, if we can see 80% of our students or 70% of our students are not meeting any benchmark data or performing well in certain skill sets, then we need to double down, as you said, and really target that and become intentional about it. So, not for the test per se, but we're missing then some important standards, I guess. Yeah, so it would be round one, they'll do benchmarking. Round two, again, I think they're doing January, and then we'll be able to look at that. Again, so between now and January, students have things they're working on, teachers have things they're working on, and we'll see if we did better.
How do the faculty feel about, I don't want to say mixed messaging, but I mean, we're talking about academic vocabulary and academic skills, but we also say that only 30% of high school students want to go into higher education. So there's trades and other key concerns that the students may have. Plus, there's been a push recently from employers about soft skills, right? And so some energy has gone to, we have to make our kids proficient with these soft skills. So are the faculty, like, are they secure in the mission?
I think they are. I really think they are, because when we're looking at assessments, I mean, our kids are gonna be taking the math test since kindergarten. So we all know about taking a temperature, right? Like, we're taking a temperature 3 times a year. How are we doing? Are we making progress? What does that look like? And what I will say is, there are so many other skills that are developed through test taking that isn't just about, am I preparing you to take that college entrance exam, right? Do you have the stamina to focus and work through something for a 45-minute period? Are you developing some resiliency? Are you gonna give up the first time you read that, or are you gonna go back and try it again? Are you gonna access all the tools that are available to you on the screen to solve a problem? So I think that all of those types of skills build into the soft skills that you're talking about, and even taking some of the certification exams for our trades. Those aren't easy exams by any means, right? And so I think I think they're all gonna be valuable lessons, and I do think our staff understand that. Though I always hate to speak for the whole staff.
No, right, and it's not a question about, are the staff doing a good job? It's just, do they feel like, are the expectations ever shifting, or are they consistent enough that they can,
I think the one thread that I would say, and we haven't talked about academic data to the degree that we've talked about academic data this year for a lot of years. I would say it's pre-COVID, and so being able to sit down and really look at hard numbers and, if you don't have anything to check your temperature or to push back on, I think I'm hitting all of these standards, or we're doing a great job, or we keep going. If there's nothing to say that that is not true, or that it is true, you kind of just keep going, right? So I think that engaging in some of these intellectual conversations is good. Was good for them on Friday, it will be good for them. It brings it back to, we've had so much focus on mental health, which we need to continue to talk about, but the discussions that we have been having around career readiness or college readiness or mental health or these other things, really, we haven't had a lot of conversation about what are we actually teaching and learning right now. And so I think from a teaching, and I think from a teaching perspective, it kind of is like, oh, right, this is what we're here for, right? Because we get lost in behavior and everything else.
well, we have a lot of responsibility.
We have a lot,
As spoke to, as Susan spoke to.
Yeah.
So to connect those two presentations, how does special education, IEPs, multilingual learners, how does that factor into standardized testing? We're finding out that we are above the state marks of special education and the needs, and we're seeing an ever-growing population of
I mean, everybody's scores are factored into the average, right? So that's what I'm saying. Each cohort of students, as they move through, is gonna have a different demographic makeup and different strengths and different challenges, and it's gonna represent itself differently in those scores, which I think is part of the reason why we haven't focused heavily on it over the years, right? And I don't want it to be all about a test score, but I do want it to be about, are we teaching what we think we're teaching, and are our kids learning what we are intending for them to learn? And if not, how would plug in?
Okay, so the school report card is gonna come out, and some paper is gonna pick it up, and they're gonna say, okay, here's where the area schools were at. How would you want board members and community members to discern that when they see those things? Because that's just a number, right?
It's just a number, and what I would really, I love that Bonnie talked about it, and Susan talked about it as well. We individualize programming for every kid who needs it, to the greatest degree we can within our environment. And our goal is to make sure that every student is safe and they're learning, and that we're reaching them and they have connections. And so the school report card number isn't gonna tell you that. And so I would caution that, right? Because everybody from our bus drivers to our custodians and our teachers and our parent and our food service staff. I mean, they interact with our kids to make sure that they feel seen and connected and heard, and they're getting that relationship piece, which is, you can't quantify that in a test number, right? So the test number is what it is, and when we have a cohort of 48 students taking that assessment, or 62 students, a couple of different students who maybe have some diverse learning needs are gonna impact the average. And so I think we need to just be mindful of that, and how are our kids doing overall? Are they being successful in their leave here? Are they coming back? We employed a lot of our alumni over the past couple of years, and that to me is a real measure of success. They want to come back here, number one, so it was a good experience, and number two, they learned the skills that we needed them to learn to be successful in supporting our mission, and so that's huge.
And that feedback is very difficult to get, right? We can track the daylights out of them until they leave,
Right.
and then all we can do is ask,
Yeah,
right? And if they don't respond, then we can't know.
For our
exactly
students
what
with
they're doing.
special education eligibility, we actually have to attempt multiple times before my last calls this year to see if people would talk to her, like, what are you doing now postgraduate? And a lot of people don't return those calls or want to engage in that, but, again, we're a small enough community that I think we have a pretty good pulse on where kids are doing when they leave here. So just remember that we are a close community, that's what I would say, and our kids they're moving. One to want to go to college are going to college, and the ones who want to get a job right out of school have been successful with that. So, any other questions about goals? You can see from those presentations, though, we're just under 40% of our students who qualify for some type of diverse learning, whether it's a 504, an IEP, an intervention plan, or a multilingual plan. That's a big number of our student body who would be considered a diverse learner as far as a student, and so I would be mindful of that too when we look at our data. Okay. All right, the last thing I would share with you from my presentation is we did survey our parents and our students about our lunch program, just trying to get a pulse of, as we begin to navigate where we want to go and how do we move forward, what's the most important things to them. And so we had about 90 responses from parents and 96 from students. What I would say, looking at the parent data, again, so we are pretty consistently serving about a third of our student population. Maybe about 33%. About 33%, and about 27% of our student body right now qualifies for free or reduced lunch. So when we had the survey, we had about 91 parents respond, and we have just under 300 families. So again, I would say we had about a third of our families respond to the survey. And from that, about 3/4 of the individuals said they did buy school lunch, and then about a quarter said they did not. So when asked why they didn't buy it, and out of those who responded, 78% of the respondents, this is all of this data, they're actually paying the $3.50 for lunch. So these are those responders were not ones whose students receive a free or reduced lunch. If they didn't buy lunch, we asked them why, and the top categories were that their children didn't like the food options, that it was too expensive, or they just preferred to make home lunch. And then when asked, we shared that the national school lunch reimbursable rate is $4.60, and that our school meal price is $3.50. Would people be willing or able to pay the difference and pay closer to the $4.60? We had 67% of the respondents saying no, they would not be willing to pay the $4.60 for lunch. And then we had some anecdotal data as well. The things that parents felt were important when they were deciding whether to buy lunch or send lunch were the price. Several people said the price. Several people said $3.50 was expensive for school lunch. They felt that nutrition and ingredients was a major factor. They wanted to see healthier food choices, and then many felt it was, again, more cost effective to make at home. And then whether or not their kids would eat what's on the menu kind of came out to the top. Being an agricultural community was not surprised. A lot of people in the survey indicated a desire for less processed food. Again, I've said it every time we talk about it. I think our staff that work in food service are amazing. Michelle's here. I know that the kids talk about how she tries to make things really good and delicious and yummy and stuff they'll eat. And I know she keeps their tabs on what are the kids like taking more often so that she can cook that and serve that. But the reality is, I would make an assumption that sometimes that processed food is the easier things to cook, and that's kind of what a lot of our kids would go towards. But our parents are indicating they want to see more fresh food and more salads and like grilled chicken and those kind of things available for kids if they were going to eat lunch here at school. Again, this is only a third
Which is
of
more
ours.
expensive.
Right, I mean, but you get it, right? Like, so, but that kind of explains why maybe they're not buying. And so what we know about supply and demand is if we had more kids purchasing, then the overall cost of food and everything would be shared across more purchasers, right, more consumers. So then the students took a survey, and this, almost rivaled the cell phone survey. We had 97 kids participate out of our 210 high school students, which is a really high participation rate. So if you bring your lunch from home, what motivates that choice? 63% of the kids who responded said taste. So we've talked about how we are constrained in what food is served and all of that based on national school lunch standards and the ingredients that they have to use. But kids did talk here about the taste at times of food. When asked, have you ever skipped lunch because you didn't like what was being served, 27% of the kids did say yes. Do you feel the food is served at the right temperature? 62% said sometimes, and 22% said always. I want to share this because I know this was a concern that people have put out there. Our kids do like having only one lunch period, and they all did say they have enough time to eat. Our team here at the high school is great. We have 50-some kids who go to IVIC. They get back 15 minutes, 14 minutes before the lunch period actually starts. Food service is ready for them, so we get that large section of kids already through the line before the rest of the kids come out. So that was not a complaint that the students brought up. They asked about portion size, and our student reps made the survey, so thank you for that, because you know what to ask your peers. They asked about portion size. It was mixed. Some kids said it was enough to help them feel full throughout the day, and others said definitely not. On a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rate the overall quality of school lunch? 87 kids responded, and 44 gave it a 3, 16 gave it a 4. So by and large, it was a 3 or 4, and then that was the portion ones. Some took it more seriously than others. In the comments of what you wish you could have on the menu, but there is a love for Dr. Pepper in the school, I would say. Dr. Pepper and skills came up a lot. They would like to see orange chicken, BLTs, fried rice.
I can do that.
Yeah, larger portions of apple juice. Taquitos, like there's a lot of chicken on here. That we had a pop-up chef come and do a honey fire chicken sandwich, and I think they sold 120 or some of those, and
So
so.
it's like 101 and then 10 staff members.
Okay.
So 111, 101 students, and then 10
Yeah.
staff, so
So that's-
111 meals.
definitely the highest food sales that we've had. And so, again, the other thing that for families to know, and I won't explain it the best, but our lunch is a lunch, right? And so lunch, when you get all of the things that count it as a regular lunch, it's $3.50. If the students don't want the things that count to make it a lunch, they start buying things a la carte, and then that price does go up. Or if somebody wants a second entree or something like that, then they are adding cost and expense to their own lunch. So, that's the data that we've collected so far. You know, I was curious to see with just everything where it is now, price-wise, you know, if our community would recognize or be open to having an increase up to the $4.60 for lunch. And it sounds like if we raise the lunch, many people said they would limit their children to eating school lunch to 1 day a week. And that they feel like they can provide them lunch at home for less than that. Some people did say that they would pay it. You know, I'm not saying there were people that said they would pay it, but the majority of responders said no, they would not. So I've had a conversation with the new regional manager for Whitson's. We sat down on Friday, we talked through some numbers, we're gonna continue to look at some things. And we can continue to look at, you know, all of the other options that we have. And again, those options would be to rebid, to see if we can get multiple bidders that might help drive some of the costs down. Or we can look at going off of National School Lunch Program with our current vendor or another vendor, which might make the food choices something that our students desire more, which may raise student participation up, which might bring overall costs down. But we do lose the guaranteed reimbursement rate from the National School Lunch Program if we do that. So we're just gonna continue to gather some information at this point, unless you all would like to direct me to do something different.
I think one useful piece of information, pieces of information would be to invite our audience members to speak to us. I mean, I'm not sure if it's appropriate to do right here, right now, but I think there's a lot of knowledge there that we can't get from Whitson's or from anybody else, right? And it might at least help us, it'll give us more to think with. In some ways.
Yeah, it wasn't nice to have an opportunity to meet last week, just to kind of gather a little bit of that background. And we are inviting her back in to meet with our student group. But yeah, so in the future.
I can make one little comment.
Yeah.
I invite all of you to actually come to lunch at all three schools to see what actually goes on during lunch, how it's served, what food is served for the day, what it looks like. I think that's important. Whoever does lunch, I mean, not even just Whitson's, but whoever does lunch.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And again, we've said it in previous meetings, I said it when I met with Liz, we love our staff. And so, you know, if we were to do something on our own, I would go to all of them and ask them to work for us directly. But so it's not about our people, it's not about how they're doing their job. Again, I started with they are part of the bright spots, right, for our students. It was a soccer game somewhere. One of our students said really loud, "Hey, that's my lunch lady," right? And like is laughing about it. I mean, so we know there's relationships there, and we only get that because you guys are part of our community, and you don't have that a lot of other places where parents in your community still come in and want to work with our kids and work with them. So we recognize that. Again, it's not about any of our people, right? We're really looking at how do we provide a meal for our students who need it, how do we provide convenience for those who want it, how do we keep our costs down from a district perspective, and serve food that is healthy, that our kids will eat. And so, yeah.
And people are very opinionated about food.
Very opinionated about it. So that is
Even
what-
though they're gonna eat, I was telling Maya before, they're gonna eat in 5 hours, but they're very opinionated about the meal they had. So, yeah, that's the hard thing, so.
Mhm. One of the things when I have spoken with a couple of the representatives, including the regional manager at Winston's, was the encouragement to try to add breakfast, because breakfast seems backwards, but because if we buy more food, then the food costs go, even though the actual cost is up, it's distributed differently. But then I'm not sure, talking with them, we would have to charge $1.50 to $2 for breakfast, and I'm not sure if our families would want to pay for that, you know? I don't know, so.
When would they eat breakfast? Is the question.
So at the elementary school, they all have snack time right away, pretty much in the morning, and so that would be a grab-and-go bag type breakfast that you would serve. At the high school, it might be similar. Our high school students start arriving at 7:20 in the morning, so they have plenty of time to eat. And then the middle school, they come in at 8:05, and so they still have a half an hour before school actually starts when they start coming in. I do think there's time for that. When we have provided, again, we got that generous donation this year, so we do provide granola bars and other non-perishable breakfast type foods for kids. And kids are hungry, they come in and they want to eat. So we're looking at that as well.
Is the sense of what the kids are bringing from home leaps and bounds ahead of what?
So
I mean, I see what my kid takes, so, you know, and it's not a king's feast.
Right. When I walk through, I see a lot of salads with grilled chicken on it, like people are bringing salads with chicken. I see, we have the microwave, so I see kids bringing whatever they had for dinner last night, you know, whether it be pasta or tacos or chips and guac or whatever, like a lot of fruit. You know, and fruit is really expensive, and to try to put that in a way on our school menu in a way that it doesn't go bad quickly. The types of, you know, different types of berries and stuff, so.
Yeah, I don't envy you guys, I'm in the food business, I don't know how you do
I
it.
I think about you
When
all
I
the
hear the
time.
cost, when I hear the cost, I'm like, I don't know how you do it, so.
So, I get it, I get all of it, and again, it's just, really, we're just looking at numbers and just trying to figure out how to provide a service at the most fiscally responsible way.
Is there a way to, produce a sack lunch that is inexpensive and yet can meet the?
Yeah, so in talking with, some of the various representatives, that having a vended meal would be cheaper than doing what we're doing. We have these great kitchens that we've put money into by, you know, upgraded stoves and everything over the past few years, but that is a possibility. There's a district nearby that does a satellite service basically, so they cook everything in one of their kitchens and then they drive it to the other building, so then they are employing less staff because they're not cooking in all of their kitchens, so. I think there are.
That takes on cost though for hot holding and there's other things that become an issue, yeah.
Right. For everything that you eliminate, you're adding something else in,
Good.
right? So.
I think it's important, just as you talked about the testing, that we just continue to tell the broader thing, because if someone's just simply saying, I don't like the cost, or I don't like the food options, that's one, it's an important dimension, but it's one dimension of a broader story. And so it's good that we got surveys and we're hearing what's going on, and yet even within the surveys, there are preferences and there's a broader narrative that flows from all of this. So.
I wanted to say that also that, you know, majority of us, if we can think back when we were in school, in our early years of school, I know for me, the school cooks were there by 6 a.m. and that wasn't for breakfast, that was to start preparing for lunch. And they were home cooked, prepared meals. we've gotten away from that over the years, and I've traveled around the states. It's just not here. It's across the board. You know, in Alaska, they were doing that same thing that you had mentioned, where they're bringing the company in with a warming truck with food on it, already trade like TV dinners, and drop them off at the schools. Food cost is just sky high now, even for us at home. You know, I've gotta make things stretch further. So I would love to be able to give the kids the fresher foods. Believe me, I would. But the availability of having that fresher food, let's say the fresher chicken breast, non-processed chicken sandwiches, or non-processed chicken nuggets. You know, we would love to have the real chicken nuggets like Chick-fil-A. That's a solid piece of meat. The cost of that is 3 times higher than your processed. And so when you start getting higher in food cost, then you're gonna have to raise your cost.
Right.
And it's like, there's no.
Yeah, what's the price? What's the price for a lunch?
Here,
Yeah,
$3.50.
so you're a third. Food cost is a third. So you're talking $1.10, $1.15. You're trying to feed a kid for $1.15.
And if you went to Chick-fil-A and got those nuggets, you're spending $6, $7.
Right?
Yeah, that's the problem. And then, so.
Food
So-
cost.
Mhm.
And we recognize that, and I mean, that for me, I'm so grateful you guys came. I want you to hear that. We recognize that wholeheartedly. So we have to figure out what can we do, if anything, to do this differently from a fiscal place, but recognizing all of the effort that you guys are putting in to make it the best that it can be, given the constraints that are put upon you too.
Do you guys ever look at the menus? Just curious.
Is there any interest in creating like a task force on this issue? Because we have vested interests, students with our meal preparing staff, and that we have to watch the money constantly. I feel like if we could all get in the same room, you know, we have conversations, but I don't know that there's a lot of like sharing and being together as all concerned humans trying to tackle this issue, right? And we all bring different perspectives and information, experience to the table if we can all come to the table. So, I mean, how is it feasible for us to try to create some sort of task force?
I am supposed to meet with like student advisory from high school and middle school.
Yeah.
To every like 3 or 4 times a year per ISB requirements. So I need that, which could help. I mean, that could be a starting process of getting that task force together.
Okay. Well, let's talk,
Yeah, we can work on
not
that.
talk more about it, let's do it.
We have to do it, it's required because we're an audit year.
Right on, good. Let's do it.
All right, anyone else? All right, we'll go ahead and move on to our discussion items. Our first item is our policy review. We are continuing with section 2. We read through parts 2, 100 through 2, 260. I don't know where we want to start. Quite a bit of information in there. So I don't know if anybody has anything specific.
I will say, some of these, especially towards the later ones, are ones that were part of Press Issue 118 and 119, so they have been recently reviewed and adopted. This kind of crime, discrimination, uniform grievance, those kind of things, we already just really did review. And then the earlier ones are really again about board member development, compensation, our relationships, so, not looking at them from a grammar and semantics place, but are there other pieces of the policy that we want to have a conversation around? Does it seem like we are implementing them as written, or there are questions about the meaning behind them? I will always take your grammar edits and put them in, but we don't have to talk about those. People will be able to know it's different. It does,
The only thing that I saw going through all of this is the 2/120 Exhibit 1 and the mentoring of the new board members. I would like to see that re-implemented, so to speak. I know when I was elected, it was during COVID, and there was a lot of, not that this didn't happen, but it didn't happen in a formal manner. So if we could get back to when there is a new board member brought on, give them have them meet with the board member, make sure they have the contact information, what they can and can't do, keeping track of the classes that they are doing through ISD, and I think that would be something to just bring back.
Sure. IASD now has a new board member training packet module that I know Maya did. And so maybe it's even capturing kind of what they're doing, and making it part of our exhibit, because I think there's probably not any better training than what the Association of School Boards provide as far as keeping track of that. They did virtual trainings, and then they did a couple of Super Saturdays, which was all targeting new board members, so, I mean, we just came on recently, I don't know if there's anything additional.
Yeah, I did read through that. I mean, I feel like I have access to any board member I need, but, I mean, it was speaking to like a specific, like, mentor and PD. And then I did take all the trainings, and it was quite extensive. But I know we tracked those, so there's some of those today as well.
But having a mentor, I mean, that's fine.
I like the idea of that. I mean, some of us didn't want to do this a strange time. First off, I wanted to say I really appreciated the chat that we had. I would want to see that continue with new board members. But I mean the superintendent and the board.
Kind of wants your why.
Yeah, exactly. But I agree with Debbie, I think it would be good to have somebody from the board appointed to be, whatever we want to call them, or something for new folks. Just to answer even some,
Your go-to person.
yeah, or even to provide some background on, who's on the board, like, a lot of people don't, they know some folks, but they don't know everybody, and just, where people are coming from, or certain people have a good expertise in different areas, and it would kind of be nice to know that coming in. Like, why, you know what I'm saying, like,
Yeah.
I mean, you're a perfect example, Jack, subject matter expert on, things like we're talking about, like the grammar, things like that. I just think it would be good for people to know some of that stuff, like when they're walking in. Why does that happen? Well, it happens, it's a perfect example, I think.
Right, and I think it would reduce affect. It's weird or uncomfortable to walk into, like, we're all pretty well bonded. We've been together for quite some time, right? And then if you're like a new person, there's just a feeling, right? Like, I'm the new person. I don't know anybody as well as they all seem to know each other. And so to kind of get that affect down a little bit, and not that we're not welcoming, I hope, but, to amplify the spirit that we have here, that we we're all here, we're all on the same team, we respect each other, we love each other. I think just being a little bit more intentional about that, like you said, you're intentional about it.
It happens,
It happens, right?
One of the policies that I wanted to just draw everybody's attention to is 2:160, the board attorney. So we do have an attorney of record, and that is Hinckley-Big. But also we can engage other attorneys as we see fit for certain things. So oftentimes we will use a different agency for special education related matters, or if we want to get a second opinion, we certainly have the ability to go out and do that. Just because we have an attorney of record for our school board does not mean that that has to be the only agency we use. Also, just so everybody knows and sees that in there, it's only myself or the board president who has access to the attorney. So the rest of you as board members would not be able to contact the attorney unless Greg, in his role as president, designated you to be the one to have that conversation. So that's not really anything that gets talked about. I want to make sure that was one to me that I thought, oh, that's worth like conversing and bringing up for sure.
Anyone else? Then we'll do this again next month. Yeah, no sections.
Yeah, I can, let me grab that in just a minute. One of the other things I was thinking about, and I don't know when it stopped, but has anybody been to a village meeting? Right, like, what's one of the first things they do? Pledge allegiance. And that by law, when a governing body comes together in this forum, so I'm thinking about 220, the procedures, we should be saying the Pledge of Allegiance to start. And I know that we always did as a district, and I'm not sure when it stopped.
I have never said the pledge at a board meeting.
Wow, okay, so it used to be that the board meetings traveled from school to school, and they had the flags up, the state flag and the American flag and a podium, and that was part of the procedure. Were you part of the traveling school
No,
model? Okay.
no, we've always been.
So that would just be something that, I don't know if you guys want to start, or if you want to have a discussion about, but technically,
Put a flag in here.
we would have to bring one in, but
We can look up the.
we are required to do that.
Well, if we're required to do it, then
We should do it.
we don't need to have a conversation about it, right?
Okay, so we'll just
Because
add
if
that.
we want to
to
put
the
it to a
agenda.
vote,
Hey, you don't want to be the guy that votes against doing it.
Okay, thank you, that was.
Jack, you want to be the guy?
All in favor?
Just add it to the agenda.
Right, so we'll just add it to the
Yeah.
agenda. We have a great flag that we can.
Tim has a
We'll put it next to the
flag
flag.
tattoo.
Megan's gonna be surrounded over here.
I do want to point out that we do have the oak frame
Beautiful
and on
oak.
display
Yes.
in the boardroom this evening.
Saw that.
I know we had talked a lot last year about the closed session, getting destroying the tapes or reviewing them. So again, that's in this policy, I would point that out too, and that's why we brought that back into happening, because that is again our policy. So you want me to look into what we're doing this time? Is it? 1. Great. Megan tells us it's section 1.
Anyone else? All right, we'll move on to our second discussion item, which is delegate nomination for the IASB Resolutions Committee.
Right, so every district is allotted a representative at the resolution assembly. So during the joint annual conference that we go to in November, one of the sessions will be the delegate assembly, where we will be casting our vote as a district to say how we feel on the things that they would like to change as far as constitutionally within IASB. So traditionally, we have had a member go and attend that assembly. So tonight, what we need to do is just nominate our delegate, and then whoever that delegate is, there is a webinar on IASB you can watch that tells you what to expect. And also, there will be another one happening that goes through all of the resolutions and what they are recommending. And then in November, before we go to Chicago, we would talk as a board about how we would like our delegates to vote. So, are there,
Who's done it? And Jack, I've done it. Debbie, you did it last year? Was it last year?
No, year before.
Year before, okay.
We're the only two going to the conference.
I don't do this.
Greg will be there on Saturday.
Oh, I think it's a great experience for everyone to enjoy. Right? It's a great experience. It really
I
is.
thought it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, yes, yes.
So Greg or Maya, do either one of you, want the opportunity?
I'll do it, I'm fine doing it.
All right.
You'll like it.
That's
I like,
fine.
You will. It's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's eye
Yeah,
opening.
it is. It's
fascinating.
a cool experience.
Yeah.
So Megan will register you as our delegate, and then you can,
You can't go rogue though, Maya. You can't go rogue. You gotta do what we say.
you, will have access to, like I said, those webinars, and then when we come back in November, we do have a couple, they only send us 3, we have some books that talk about what those resolutions
So
are.
they have them set?
Yeah, we
Okay.
have it, and then I'll find a PDF of it and send it out to you guys, so everybody has that, but if anybody wants the hard copy, they did send us 3.
So we will discuss at the next meeting what the issues are, and you'll hear how we vote, you know, in that stuff. Is there a lot of them?
No more than, not as many as last year, but
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah,
last year was a lot, so.
there's not.
but that's Saturday.
That's Saturday at 10:30, and it will, it usually goes to about 1. You'll be hungry. Lunch. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, we have no action items tonight. So we'll move on to our FOIAs. We had 3 of them. We had Michael Ross from Allium Data about property and casualty insurance policies. We had Sherry Reed from Smart Procure, any and all purchase records from July 7th, 2025 to current. And Steve Watts searching for personal names, titles, and salaries.
Yeah, so the first 2 are annual, the Smart Procure is quarterly. Michael Ross with Allium is annually, and Steve Watt is just a citizen who requested the information, but not from our area. I believe he's from Texas, I recall.
Can AI generate FOIAs?
Yes.
So, when will that start to be
It already has,
regulated?
yeah, it already has, and regulated, I don't know, but it is happening, and.
How do you determine that something is an AI generated FOIA? The
Part of
long
what-
dashes between them?
Yeah, the bold,
Okay.
part of what we have been instructed to do too is like, when we were getting a mass amount,
Uh-huh.
all very robotically written, all requesting the same kind of thing from the same name through various, affiliations. However, now that one, which was thought to be AI, is now have legal representation who has started responding, so I'm not
Okay.
sure about that, but, our legal has advised us to always, if we think that, send an email back asking for more information about what they're requesting, and then if they don't respond,
Okay.
you could make some reasonable assumptions. I respond to all of them that we get. I don't know where they're going, but I do know those who chose not to respond to, the Owen Lang ones that, are now getting, follow-ups with, you didn't respond to this on May 7th, or you didn't respond to this on April, whatever. So. Right now, they've been manageable. I know that we have some districts in our area who, are really getting involved with action by PAC, the Political Action Committee, and so I'm just grateful that ours are still just about salary and benefits.
All right, move on to our agenda items for the next meeting, so we'll have the truth and taxation hearing, 6:15. FFA is giving a presentation. And then what else?
So, if you guys are ready, I recommend that we go ahead and act on the tax levy, so it gives it time to get it processed, and then again, if for some reason either we choose not to meet in December, or there's a reason we can't meet in December, we'll have that covered. So I've talked a little bit about how, there has been a dance between our Regional Office of Education and KEC, our alternative school. And so, KEC is in the ROE are separating in their partnership, so KEC will be a standalone alternative learning opportunity program, so they have to be recognized as an ALOC program separate from the ROE. So they are asking that all participating boards review and take action on an agreement that would keep us in partnership with them as they move into their own individual entity. So I will be bringing that for your review, and the school maintenance grant application just populated today. So I will be bringing, school maintenance grant, which again is an opportunity to get $50,000 towards one of our, O&M projects this year. So I'll be bringing that for your approval next month as well. Anything else?
We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Meeting is adjourned at 8:40.